Welcome to Trust Talks and Digital Dives, where we delve into the world of trust in the digital age. Trust Talks and Digital Dives is produced by DIACC, a nonprofit organization that fosters secure and privacy-enhancing access to digital services in Canada and globally. Whether you're navigating the complexities of data privacy, pondering the impact of AI on trust, or curious about how technology shapes our relationships, you're in the right place. Today we have an inspiring episode lined up as we shine the spotlight on women in leadership. Joining us today is the remarkable Debbie Gamble, Interac's Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer. Debbie brings 35 years of experience to the Interac team. She drives their innovation strategy and minds new venture and partnership opportunities. Her firsthand experience as an entrepreneur with such innovations as mobile commerce, digital verification, and cryptocurrency solutions make her one of the country's most seasoned authorities on the digital economy. In 2021, Debbie was recognized as one of the most influential women in payments by Payment Source. Let's dive in to Digital Trust with Debbie. Welcome, Debbie. It's wonderful to have you join us for today's episode of Trust Talks and Digital Dives.
Thanks, Joni. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. I've had the pleasure of working with Interac for many years now, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear your insights, both from a personal view and from the direction of Interac and how you've evolved as an organization. The first thing I'd like to ask you is if you would share your journey that led you to Interac strategic leadership. I know our listeners would love to hear what that journey was like, and any pivotal moments along the way that shaped your career in digital payments and verification.
Sure. I mean, it's been a while. I've been doing this for a long time. So my journey started because I am that old. It started in the 80s. So you can think about just the changes in technology from then till now. So I've had a career in the space that's allowed me to have a kind of a view on the evolution of the landscape, which has been quite incredible. So my career started as an immigrant coming over from the UK. I was lucky enough to get, a student summer job at CIBC at one of the banks here, and that summer job lasted 16 years. And while I was at the bank, my kind of career evolved. I started, with it helped me build some of the foundational skills that I still use today. But it really did give me a kind of ground floor view at the time, what the payments network was what was being built and what I got to work on. And I actually, so I work at Interac right now, but I actually got to work on the early iterations of what became Interac in the late 80s. So it started at one of the banks, and I it's a summer job that I didn't really have an intention of working in the banking industry, but I was lucky enough to work on some very interesting projects. And so I stayed because I kept getting these new opportunities, and that eventually led me to move back to the UK for work, which was my first kind of executive role for a company called Mondex, which was a subsidiary of MasterCard. And then that took me to the US and gave me a bit of a global perspective. And then I came back to Canada in the early 2000s. And then I tried my hand as an entrepreneur and founded a company with a couple of colleagues, was lucky enough to IPO that, took a bit of time out, did some consulting, which also, again, landed me in the fortunate position of working on some early iterations of things with some big players. And I joined Interac actually almost 10 years ago, when Interac was thinking about the future of mobile. And that was 2014, shortly after Apple had announced to the world that they were moving into payments with Apple Pay. So I've had the opportunity to kind of see things from the very early stages, pre-internet days, to leveraging the amazing technology that we have today to deliver secure transactions.
Fascinating story, and certainly as well the different views and the different experiences that you've brought from around the world, and then also in those different roles from major financial institution to startup to consulting. What an interesting journey that I'm sure has brought you different lenses into the work that you do today. So fascinating. And I always you know, I've immigrated to Canada as well, so I always have a extra soft spot for people who immigrate to this country and do their work and their innovation here. So thank you for sharing that with us, Debbie. As you've you know, so you mentioned that your early executive roles was in the UK, and then, you know, certainly here at Interac. Regarding your leadership philosophy, certainly leading organizations has its own challenges and its own benefits to it. As a leader, how do you go about fostering innovation and change within Interac, and particularly around those intersections of payments, verification, and security? They're all unique individual topics, but they're all intersecting with each other.
They are. You know, the really interesting thing for people like us, right, is they're all distinct and unique, and yet there is this kind of thread that you can connect the dots. And you know, when we're successful at connecting the dots, you can hopefully create both a great user experience and something that's going to add value to the ecosystem. And you know, part of the reason why I'm able to do that at Interac is you know, a large part based on the role that Interac plays in the ecosystem. So as many of your listeners will know, Interac's uniquely Canadian. We are owned by the financial institutions, large and small, so the big guys plus all of the credit unions across the country. And so because we are a network, we have to have a broad perspective, right, by default, as to how we can connect the ecosystem, how we can connect Canadians from coast to coast to coast. So, you know, being a network, scale is everything. But it also means that because we're uniquely Canadian, we have to be mindful of everything else that's going on around the world, because, you know, our marketplace is global, but we're servicing Canadians. So we have to think about how we enable Canadians to securely engage, how we can give them the kind of experiences that are relevant to their particular needs, and that's both on a consumer level and on a you know, a business level, and what we can do to help enable the ecosystem. So, you know, so how does that relate to innovation? I think it's actually quite similar to the story of Interac, which is a bunch of the financial institutions in the 80s, you know, thought about leveraging the assets they had. They each had ATMs. How could they build a better offering? Well, connect the ATMs to each other and deliver a nod on us that the marketplace takes for granted now. So regardless of who you bank with, you can use a bank machine. And then that evolved to, let's leverage that network and introduce debit, which was a game changer for Canadians. We have led the way for many years as a nation in debit users. So we're very comfortable in that kind of domain. And so what does that mean as far as innovation? Well, you have to keep innovating on that. You have to keep bringing new solutions to market. So for me, being at Interac, it's a very comfortable place for us to think about how do we deliver best-in-class solutions to the marketplace, and how do we benefit from the value of the network to be able to do that and bring those solutions to scale for Canadians.
Fascinating. And you touched on so many pieces there, and including the connecting of the dots and the
Mm.
multidisciplinariness. I wonder, when I look at this space and, as a woman in leadership myself and really believing for me and my own philosophy, diversity, I think everyone has something to bring, multiple things to bring to the
Yep.
table, all shapes and sizes and all people. Do you think that as a woman in leadership, there's an additional, do you think that lends you a bit to connecting the dots side of things? Do you think that
I do. Yes, absolutely. I do. I think just by nature, women do that. But I think there's also perhaps a feeling of an obligation and an opportunity to do that as a woman. I had fantastic female colleagues and male colleagues throughout my career that actually allowed me the various opportunities to advance my career. And so at this stage in my life, it's very, very important to me to kind of, pay that forward, if you like. And I don't mean that just out of the kind of, it's good for me. I mean, it's good for everybody. It's good for the ecosystem. It's the right thing to do. And just that, that notion of the need for inclusivity when you're thinking about building a new product, right? Different perspectives bring different value. So that's always, that diversity of thought is always more valuable. That, statistics show us a more diverse ecosystem typically delivers better solutions. So I think it's a win-win, right? It's not just women. It definitely is. That's very important to me, but it's also, minorities and ensuring that there is a voice and there's an opportunity for those diverse perspectives to be included. So yeah, I listen, I'm at a stage in my career where it's easier for me to do that because I can help connect those dots, and having that opportunity to work on a global level increases, the potential for us to connect those dots around the world.
Yeah, here. I completely agree with that in terms of the diversity of all types is the right ethical thing to do. It's also the right business thing to
It is.
do. Makes us stronger. So love to hear your leadership perspective on that. Let's shift gears a little bit into evolution. I mean, certainly, as someone who arrived to Canada, I've been here a number of years now, but I know that after being in Canada, when I travel somewhere else, maybe the US, I'll pick on the US where I came from. The payment rituals are so confusing, and what am I doing? And I'm tapping and signing. And so there's lots of evolution in this space and how these tools are being implemented as well. And I think Canada's a real leader there. So um, how have you seen the digital payment and verification industries evolve over the year? And is there anything particularly from a fundamental perspective from the evolution over time at Interac that you'd like to call out going with the change?
Sure. I mean, I think, gosh, the last 40 odd years, lots of things have changed, right? I would say probably the biggest game changer for all of us is the internet and mobile, and that kind of personalization and relevancy that mobile brings to us means that you can deliver great experiences right to the customer. And with that, and as those experiences become richer and more relevant and solve, all kinds of different problems, the expectations are also increased, right? So the customer expectations are increased, which is so it's kind of that flywheel. But I think that the rapid pace of technology change, the changing landscape of the ecosystem, my world of payments and verification is not just financial institutions anymore. And it's not just financial institutions and fintechs, it's big tech and pretty much any sector of the marketplace that takes a payment or has to verify some flavor of engagement. So then the ecosystem just becomes, one huge set of challenges and opportunities. But, for the kind of evolution of the industry, I would say that, mobile certainly changed the way we engage and experience those services that are delivered. The smartphone completely changed that environment so that we can do so many additional, more secure things, and we can verify with biometrics at our fingertips. And, then the mobile device becomes a point of sale device all at the same time. And tokenization and encryption can help provide some of that enhanced security. So I think, I've been lucky enough to work at the very early stages of the evolution of that kind of experience, and looking forward to how that continues to evolve. Certainly, as tokenization has taken on a much more prominent role in not just payments, but I think pretty much every secure transaction we're going to start to see being tokenized. Love to get your thoughts on that, but I think, and then the value of data at every level in the transaction and what that brings. Now I'm just doing a stream of consciousness, right? Which is like, okay, now let's talk about the data, and then the data becomes AI, and then it becomes, all around the controls and ensuring the security around it and the agency of the data. So, we've got a lot of challenges and an incredible amount of opportunities in front of us to kind of deliver some great experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much as well for, I love that you called out the people at the center in the beginning, and their expectations, and sometimes they even know how to communicate with them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So this is part of your role, being ahead of those expectations. And then, yes, of course, we can certainly go down the trail of big data and AI. And I personally believe that both the massive opportunities and challenges that AI is going to bring is only going to make verification more in demand of your customers and your partners. So I think it's actually the call of our ecosystem is to help that verification layer. So really, really impressive, the work that you're doing at Interac at that forefront with all of those different stakeholders and those requirements. And along those lines, and meeting the next call, I know that you've undergone some restructuring at Interac. So can you elaborate on the restructuring that you've done, and
Sure,
what brought that about, and how have you positioned yourself for the next chapter?
Yeah. Like most companies, we are grappling what's the future have in store for us. And we touched a little earlier just on the kind of global nature of our ecosystem now, and the fact that technology is delivering all kinds of fantastic potential for us. The consumer expectations, the business expectations are changing. So for us, an Interac, again, unique Canadian company, we punch above our weight, which I'm very, very proud of. And we touch on Canadians' lives every day. So not only is it super important for us to be able to deliver on that security, that resilience, the confidence and the trust. Trust is a big deal for us. It's a big word that we do not, banter around lightly. But it's also very important for us to maintain our ability to be able to anticipate and respond to the market. So we embarked on a journey probably a bit over a year ago to start to think about what does that mean to us in the nature of how we're structured, in the nature of how we look at technology and the network, how we deliver those capabilities. And we knew that the needs and opportunities in the market meant that we have to become more nimble. So we have fully embraced an agile mindset, and we've done that right across the company, not just our technology. And we have put the customer at the center through the lens of a product-centric organization. So that's kind of our focus, our kind of lenses through products that do deliver to those customers, whether that be our shareholders, the financial institutions, or whether it be the end consumer or business. So to do that, we really kind of we reimagined the company. And we said, for us to truly embrace that opportunity to become more nimble, to do more, to be able to not only stay relevant, but maintain our capability as a thought leader in the space. How do we do that? And so we completely reimagined the company. We thought about what kind of talent do we have? How do we leverage that talent? We have some amazing talent internally. And what kind of talent and capabilities are we going to need for the future? And we kind of tweaked the structure a little bit, but really the execution is what is really more of what we have changed for us too. So we are fully immersed in agile methodology, with squads and sprints and epics and everything that goes along with being that. But it really, I would say, the focus of this is for us to be outcomes driven so that we can deliver those great experiences with the customer at the center through the lens of our products.
So the same and better great service and capabilities with security and trust, now with more nimble at being nimble and being able to shift and adjust with the way that technology is moving so quickly now in 2024. It's a commendable feat. I know to put it down into a few words into this podcast is a challenge, but I know, and having the pleasure and honor of working with many different individuals at Interac, I know how committed everyone that I've spoken to is to this restructure, and really excited for the approach being fully agile across the board. So I commend you and the team on that, reimagining something that is so an organization that's so foundational to us as our payment network here in Canada. So you touched a bit on, you touched quite a bit on digital trust and verification. If you had to in looking ahead at what you're doing within Interac, would you call out what you think are the most significant challenges and opportunities around digital trust and verification, and how you're working to strategize for both those lenses?
Sure. And listen, I would also say, just on the topic of our kind of ongoing transformation, we're at the start of this journey, right? We're really at the early days of how do we truly get our arms around what being agile means and being. So, more to come on that. I said trust is a very important dynamic for everybody who works at Interac, because we are a network, and we have to ensure that our users and Canadians are confident in that network. And they are, as I said, the capabilities are core to the way Canadians, live their lives every day, whether they're paying for their coffee at the local coffee shop, or sending money, or logging in to verify themselves. That is, we want to make that easy. We want to make sure it works every time in the same way, in the way that Canadians expect that to work, but that it is relevant for their needs. So we don't take that trust lightly, and we're privileged to be continually viewed by Canadians as, one of the most trusted brands in the country, which is incredible. But that means we've got to embed that philosophy into everything that we do, right? So that we can ensure that Canadians are transacting with confidence. That's that's the goal, right? That they know who they're engaging with. They're confident that the transaction is secure and safe. And in fact, they don't need to think about it because, you know, it's not like we go about our day thinking about, I'm going to pay here, right? It's that it should just be embedded within our daily activities. So, but looking at it through a kind of foundational lens means we've got to really embed it within everything. So security is table stakes for us. In everything that we do, security by design. We look at trust through the lens of a framework that talks about authenticity, not just in the kind of view of the technology and verification and authentication and foundational credentials and, you know, all of those words that our colleagues in the verification space around the world would know and embrace, but also in the authenticity of the offerings that we are bringing to market. The other two kind of legs of this framework still, I would say, are inclusivity and relevance. And so inclusivity, we talked about, you know, how being inclusive is not just the right ethical thing to do. It's important to the success of any business. So, but our service you know, delivers value to Canadians across the country, and everybody needs to be able to participate in that. So that's also table stakes to us. And then the relevancy point is really about how we can deliver those great experiences so that, you know, users can either make that payment transaction or just go about their day. And it is solving a problem or delivering an opportunity that they need. So we kind of have to embrace whatever we do, whatever products we're offering, and whatever partnerships we're delivering to the market have got to be anchored around that kind of trust framework.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's absolutely right. And in my experience as well, is people don't want to hear all the fancy words that we talk about. I think they want to know that we're talking about, they want to know that we're acting on them. They
Yes,
want
yes.
somebody, some qualified people and organizations are working on the really hard parts, but they just want to know that they're able to make the payment, to get the thing, to do the thing they want to do, and then it's repeatable, and that they can predict the outcomes, and that they're safe along the journey.
That they're safe. Exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned as well, you know, that you're at the beginning of your agile journey as an organization, even, you know, going through the restructure. That said, I've seen Interac firsthand, and I think any great organization is always in a bit of a state of evolution in both planning ahead and reacting to the conditions that are out there. So I've seen you folks absolutely making that commitment with pragmatism, and, you know, with all the things that we need to trust in our payments, and the patterns that are also relevant for verification. And I love that you use the word authenticity, because it's all about, it's so difficult for people to know what they can trust online, or, you know, what they see, can they trust. So again, I think this verification space is only going to become more and more in demand by society as technology continues to move forward. So I'm so grateful for the time with you, Debbie. I personally feel very privileged that I have the opportunity to have conversations with so many amazing people in our industry and in our ecosystem. So one of my goals with this podcast is helping to bring those conversations out to others so they can benefit as well. So I really appreciate the time that you've shared with us today, Debbie. And I wanted to leave the audience with, if you have some actionable advice that you'd like to leave for our listeners, please share with us what you feel some actionable advice for the listeners who'd like to learn more and get involved.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd say thank you, Joni. You know, I'm assuming people, you know, checking into what we have to say today know about DIACC, and if you don't, find out more, because it's, you know, a key element to the success of our ecosystem. So I think the work that you guys have done on the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework has really helped us think about, you know, what's needed for, because what we're really talking about in all of this is really about the kind of vibrancy of our digital economy, right? Like that's what's at stake here. It's so important, and I agree with you that verification is actually a cornerstone, because if you can't digitally engage and feel comfortable and confident and secure, then you're really, you're not able to bring your whole self to the kind of, current digital landscape. So I think that is just foundational necessity. But, if I was to kind of, I'd say get involved. The work that the ecosystem is doing is there's so much work to be done around standards and interoperability and UI UX from an experience perspective that and this is going to take all of us in both the public and the private sectors, right? This isn't a kind of us versus them, whether that be just in the corporate sector. It's going to take all of us, and it's going to require cross-industry collaboration, especially when we're talking about security and verification and, the future of technology like AI and how we can combat fraud and cybercrime. So I would say get involved, find out more about how you or your organization can contribute to the evolution of the work and the standards, and bring some ideas to the table. And I think that, this is the kind of Canadian way, right? We like to collaborate. And so I think we have a massive opportunity and a massive undertaking, but we all need to kind of step forward and lean into it.
Absolutely. Collaboration is our game. It's in our DNA in Canada, and being at the messy front end of change. It's that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And certainly takes a village on these complex topics. So there is so much interdisciplinary contributions to be made and to be done. So all perspectives add into the resolution, into the picture. So thank you again, Debbie. It's been, we often are spending a lot of time into the weeds of verification. Yes. Work that we do. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more on your career journey side and what's brought you here and those aspects. So thanks for being so, willing to share those, your experiences and your insights with myself and with the listeners and with our ecosystem here in Canada and in our global digital economy. Thanks a lot, Debbie.
Thanks, Joni. Great chatting with you. Hi.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Trust Talks and Digital Dives. Your support means the world to us. If you found today's conversation insightful, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Help us spread the word by sharing Trust Talks and Digital Dives in your networks. So until next time, keep exploring and keep delving into the world of digital trust.